Hello, hello, hello. Kyle Held with Miramichi Green. Happy to be joined today by CEO Russ Britton. How you doing, Russ?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Thanks for joining us. We're going to have a little conversation today about biochar.
hmm
Many people think of Miramichi Green as a biochar company, and it is true that many of our best-selling products are based on biochar inputs. But we are not strictly a biochar company. But we do get an awful lot of questions about biochar. What is it? Where does it come from? How does it work? What are the things to know and be on the lookout for? So I thought, no better place to go for answers than to the man himself. So got a few
Yeah.
questions lined up. I hope you'll give
I'm,
us
re-
some insight into the magic of biochar today.
I would say one of my strong points is not being too technical too quickly, but I think it's important maybe to just kind of give an overview. So, because this is a big subject, you can keep going deeper and deeper if you like.
Yeah, it is. So I'd love to start, with two things. One is maybe a brief history of biochar itself. What
hmm
is it, and where did we come to learn about that technology? And then how did you come to know about it and incorporate it into our very first products at Miramichi Green?
Yeah, well, terra preta soils have been around for 2,000 years, and there were these cultures that learned how to take biochar, which is wood after it's burnt wood basically with a lack of oxygen, and then it's put in the soil, and scientists have found that, and they proved that it can rejuvenate the soil, and what was planted in those regions were enough to feed the populations back then. Okay, and I studied some of that in college. But what made the connection was growing up in a farming family in the '60s. There was a lot of use of bat guano for tobacco, even, and peanuts. And I remember taking a class. And one other thing, and my dad always used carbon on seeds to help fight off any kind of contaminant that may be in the soil. But at the same time, it showed it held a little moisture there, and later on to find out that it's holding biology around that seed too to help that plant populate. To connect those two things in school, I did a study um, about why a plant survives. The last plant on Mount Everest, why does it survive? And it only comes alive, some years only maybe a month or a week, and when everything gets correct. And if you study those extreme edges of our environment, there's one common denominator in all of them. There's a fleck of biochar, burnt carbon in the soil there, and I just thought that was amazing. That's how the creator of this earth rejuvenated soil in the most stressed out situation. And I said, hey, we use a lot of synthetic fertilizers on the farm, and I noticed that the crops did better when Dad put more time into controlling the moisture and using things like carbon on the seed, and not so much just putting more fertilizer out. And I don't know, just kind of put two and two together and came up with 4, 5, 6, and 7. And then the key for Miramichi Green was go out. If you're going to take a non-synthetic product, you got to find the best compost out there, which is I think we found, and then you got to find the best biochar and marry those two together and get the benefits that have been used on this earth for since its formation, basically.
Yeah, so you just said something interesting. Well, you said a lot of interesting things. But one of them was you've got to marry it with compost. And so
Yeah.
one of the common questions we get at Miramichi all the time is, can I buy raw biochar? And we don't sell raw biochar. We sell only enhanced biochar or custom
Right.
blends of biochar. Talk to us a little bit more about that. Why we insist on doing that, and what your thinking is.
Well, listen, straight biochar is if you're not using it properly in any kind of quantity, I mean, you're going to, and the first thing you're going to experience is it's going to adhere the performance of the plant because it goes to a charging phase. And so even earlier on when we were making product, we had a biochar separate from our compost, and we had mixed results, at the timetable that professionals want to see that result today. That's the key. Over time, it'll do a great job. So we had to figure out a way to inoculate the two together properly, efficiently. So when that product was used, it performed at a professional standard. And so, we did a lot of trials and error, but came out with a process that just started happening every time. Because when you grow up in big ag, you got to have response. I mean, you can't put out and hope that things start to be activated in a week, and it activates in 2 months. And that's fine if your industry can handle that. But I grew up in an industry where in big ag is that you have to know what you're putting in the soil, and you got to know the result. So that's where we started really sourcing the organic that can react quickly, because there are a lot of good composters out there that will work perfectly over time, but you need one that's processed enough in the proper manner where it can be beneficial to the plant as soon as possible. And then the biochar has to be there to aid in its benefits as soon as possible. So that's what I think that's the type of product we ended up coming out with. And as you know, it works wonders from here to Hong Kong, literally, around the globe.
That's right. So when people are interested in buying a raw biochar, something like that, what I'm hearing is they need to be prepared to either add it to their soil and wait a long time for it to provide benefit, or they need to be prepared to inoculate it themselves. And that means adding additional nutrients or minerals or beneficial biology, so that gets sucked into the pore space of the biochar,
Right.
and has that sort of slow release when they go to use it.
Right. And there's nothing wrong with a company that just makes biochar and sells it directly. I mean, our passion was, my personal passion was to bring it to the professional landscape market, bring it to the homeowner, and bring it to ag. And if you're going to focus on those 3 markets, you've got to come up with a product that meets their demand. So, we have nothing against people who just make biochar and sell that. That's perfectly fine. That's just not the market that we had a passion to be in. So,
got it, love it. And of course, we do make custom biochar blends as well. So, we have a line of Mirimichi Green brand products, but many of our products are co-branded or white label products where people want us to do exactly this for them. Is to say, we want the benefits of biochar, and we sort of skipped over what those are, but we want the benefits of biochar in our product. How do we marry those things together?
Right. Where everybody's after a formula of value and cost, and that's what you're going to see. We had a great discussion yesterday about how much of these products different. Well, I mean, on the margin they are different, but they're all just very good soil amendments. And one that it's just kind of common sense. If it has compost in it, it's going to have more biology, possibly. There's going to be inherent NPK and micronutrients in there. If another one has just gypsum and biochar, I mean, you're not going to get the benefits of compost. It's just pretty simple for someone to look at the different products that we have. And everybody's looking for that best key for their markets. But if I'm sitting back going, which one do I use? I mean, they're all going to help. If it doesn't have nutrients in it, you need to add nutrients from something else, or maybe your soil already has a bunch of nutrients and you're just trying to make better use of that soil. So it's pretty simple. I know people from our conversation yesterday, like, what's the difference? Well, on the margin, you can do a deep dive and match things up, but they're just all great soil amendments.
So I'm looking at my notes over here, and we jumped around a little bit about why we want to use biochar in the first place. What does it? You talked about how you grew up in ag and saw the benefits there, but more specifically, when we talk about soil health and productivity, can you give us a little bit more about what it's actually doing in the soil profile as a
absolutely. It's kind of like it helps marry everything together and fight off demons. Let's put it that way. My other company, after leaving Wall Street, I started a company. We became the largest commercial compost seeding company in the country, and we did it in a really tough zone. We got warm season grasses and cool season grasses cutting right through our market, and then you got the beach and the mountains as well. and going the opposite direction. So, you know, we're out there, and the amount of money that's in a development today is huge. I mean, you're talking 100 million, 200 million, 500 million dollar in projects, and we were trying to find out a way to stabilize soil at the same time, revitalize soil, and also, you know, reduce risk and meet future environmental regulations. So, you know, it's kind of a world going, how are we going to really figure this out? And one day we're riding along, and I was just like, I want to find just the gnat's tail. We said it another way sometimes, of what's working here, and let's bring it down to something that's, I don't have to put an inch of compost across, you know, 800 acres or 100 acres or down a highway, and get the maximum benefit at a cost that a professional can use on a regular basis. And so the biochar, you know, a good compost does a great job, but there's one thing that the compost doesn't do. It doesn't keep the soil aerobic. You can have great soils, and if it becomes anaerobic, it's not going to be beneficial for biological growth and uptake of nutrients to the plant. So, you know, the air pores were the first thing that we really looked at in the biochar that worked really well. And, you know, it was very evident to me that, you know, many of the issues that a landscaper or a farmer may have in the soils becomes anaerobic. And, you know, and if we could just kind of aerate the top 4 to 6 inches of the soil with a product that's not only do it now, but it's going to perpetually do it, that's a benefit. And then you can start laying on, you know, short-term value and the cost of anything you do. You got to look at short-term value, intermediate value, and long-term value, and marrying those two together. It's proven to be a very valuable proposition to someone who's using the products on their property.
Got it. Yeah, I love that. Well, we want to keep these chats, you know, relatively short. Tell me your prediction for the future of biochar in landscape, in ag. What are we going to be seeing in the next few years?
You know, there are people out there trying to do some design of biochar. I think that, you know, as more biochar becomes available, the cost is going to be more affordable. And I think that, you know, it takes money. We've known of a couple of companies that spent a bunch of money trying to get certain patents around biochar, and they were unsuccessful. I think this new generation of superintendents, landscapers, ag managers, landowners are starting to look at the cost benefit proposition, and and you get into an inflationary time, that's just going to propel that. And they're going to see that they got to incorporate these types of products. You know, the Farm Bill just, you know, 3 or 4 years ago added biostimulants. I mean, the high-end farmers have been using biostimulants for years. So it's coming to mainstream. It's going to take companies like Mirimichi Green to get the product out there to the right people and educate. And I really think that I don't think it's going to solve all our problems, but it's going to help with a lot of them.
I love it. All right. Well, thanks so much for your time today. We appreciate it. Until next time, I'm Kyle with Mirimichi Green. Thanks to our CEO, Russ Britton. And please submit your questions. We'll be happy to discuss them.
Thank you, Kyle. Anytime.